Discovered, the incredible moment a mafia boss saw hope in the woman abandoned on her first date. Mary's heart sank as she glanced at the clock again. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making the gritty diner feel even more stifling. Her hands trembled slightly as she wiped down the counter for the umpteenth time. She had been stood up again. The man, who had promised cocky charm at the bar a week earlier, had vanished like smoke, leaving behind only the bitter taste of disappointment. Loneliness clawed at her gut, and for a fleeting moment, she allowed herself to wonder if she'd ever have a life outside this diner. But the weight of bills for her sick mother and her sister's education tugged at her every time she thought of breaking free. The door creaked open, and in walked Tony, the local mafia boss, his burly frame commanding the room. Mary quickly straightened, trying to project an air of nonchalance, but her heart thudded under her uniform. He was looking for a good brunch, he was here for coffee and to evade the world momentarily. Their eyes met, his dark, intense gaze studying her, and something shifted. Was it pity? Interest? For the first time that evening, she felt the stirrings of hope, mixed with the familiar tension of dread pulling her back into reality. Coffee, she offered, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside. That he nodded, taking a seat at the counter. Every movement felt like a choreography of tension. She peppered conversation with small talk, revealing a glimpse of herself amid the mundane, while Tony seemed to see through her facade. Each word exchanged nudged her toward a precipice, revealing dreams of opening her own restaurant, escaping the neighborhood that confined her like a cage. His laugh, deep and infectious, practically invited her to sink deeper into that fantasy, but her internal dialogue screamed for caution. She could hardly trust a man like him. Before they could move further into their shared vulnerability, the insistent buzz of Tony's phone interrupted. He answered, his expression darkening as he spoke. Mary's breath hitched, her heart racing, not from the connection she'd just begun to foster but from the dread creeping in. With each passing moment, she could feel the walls closing in, her own hopes clashing with the world that surrounded him. He was a man accustomed to loyalty, clad in shadows that could easily consume her light. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The dark gravity of Tony's world settled heavily between them when he ended the call, a new tension wrapping around their fragile bond. When he turned back, the storm of emotions in his eyes was unmistakable, a turmoil she couldn't comprehend yet felt acutely. I shouldn't be here, he murmured, but the way he leaned closer betrayed his interest in her life, caught like a moth to a flame. Then came the betrayal. A trusted lieutenant stormed in, eyes darting towards Mary, and in that moment, she realized her connection to him made her a target. Her breath quickened, fear crashing over her like icy water. Did you tell them I was here? Panic clawed her insides. Tony's world was dangerous, it was all she knew. Why had she opened up, put herself at risk? They stood locked in a brutal standoff of emotions, gratitude battling terror. Choices loomed heavy on the horizon, a tide of uncertainty closing in around them. Should Mary embrace the hope he represented or draw back, preserving her fragile integrity in a world of chaos? As if anticipating the storm's destructive nature, she felt an invisible thread bind them, a connection that could either redefine their lives or shatter her dreams utterly. Tomorrow would come with decisions to be made. But for one fleeting moment, Mary stood amid this chaos, her dreams battling fear, and the question loomed larger than ever: could she really step into the unknown with someone like Tony, or would his life drown her aspirations, marking the end before she even began? Mary's mind raced as she noticed the lieutenant step farther into the diner, his eyes fixated on her. The tension in the air thickened, constricting her breath. She could feel every heartbeat echoing in her ears. This wasn't just a chance meeting anymore, it had become a collision of worlds, each vying for dominance. In that insidious moment, decisive clarity flickered within her. She wasn't just a waitress anymore, she was a player in a game far beyond what she ever imagined. The choice she faced wasn't only about embracing Tony's world, it was about finally seizing control of her life. The weight of responsibility for her family had shackled her aspirations, but now an unexpected avenue surged ahead. "Tony, I need to go," she stated firmly, her voice nearly lost in the ambience of the diner. But as she spoke, a new resolve surged through her, emboldening her to confront the fear stalking her days. It was time to step up and make her own choices. She quickly grabbed a nearby notepad, the familiar scratch of pencil on paper becoming a ritual. "Where are you going?" Tony's question was edged with concern, yet there was a glint of admiration that caught her off guard. That fleeting reassurance, amid chaos, tugged at her heart, prompting urgent reflection. If this is your world, and I stick around, who knows what happens next? She threw back at him, feeling a strange sense of power. "But I can either stand still or take charge of my future, regardless of where that leads." "You can't mean to just walk away," he replied, the steel in his voice a stark contrast to her growing determination. "Watch me," she shot back, but it was not a challenge, it was a declaration. In that moment, Mary realized she had an innate skill and ability to redefine boundaries not only for herself but for those around her. Juggling her dreams of culinary creation with the prospect of working in Tony's world wasn't just a gamble, it was an intricate formula for survival. She thought of her mother's struggles and the sacrifices for her sister. Could this be the beginning of a new chapter in her life? A bold venture into the dangerous unknown might lead her closer to the restaurant she always dreamed of or teach her skills that had been dormant within her. She confronted the lieutenant standing ominously, a challenge seeping through her veins. "Get out before I call the cops," she warned, her voice steady even as her heart raced. She had never spoken to anyone with such authority before, powered by a veritable force rising from the core of her being. There was no backing down now. Mary was breaking the chains that had held her in place for too long. The lieutenant seemed taken aback by her audacity, sharing a sidelong glance with Tony, who appeared caught between admiration and caution. The realization settled like a weight in the pit of her stomach. She had just stepped into a new arena, and no matter how unpredictable it was hers to navigate. This was her moment of truth. "Listen, Mary," Tony said softly, leaning in closer. "I respect that you want something more. Just know there are risks, but there might also be rewards beyond what you think." Rewards. The word echoed in her mind, igniting a spark of possibility. She saw potential where fear lurked, framing her thoughts anew. "I don't want to fit in," she stated, her voice laced with resolve. "I want to stand out, to rise above what's expected of me." Tony's expression shifted, admiration giving way to concern. "So, what's your plan?" The question hung in the air, a testament to the pivotal juncture she now faced. "I need to make moves and decide what path I take, whether I stay here or explore that world," she replied, realizing that this was solely about Tony but about asserting her identity and ambitions. As the confrontation simmered down, Mary felt the embers of her dreams rekindle. The question of how far she was willing to go loomed larger, igniting a fire deep within. And then, as if summoned by her unease, the phone in Tony's pocket buzzed ominously. With a knowing glance, she realized that time was quickly slipping away. Would she seize this moment amid the uncertainty, or would fate dictate the terms? Tomorrow would bring a horizon of decisions that would shape not just her future but the future of the very lives depending on her. The stakes had never been higher, and Mary stood poised between danger and opportunity. "Tomorrow," she breathed, determination coursing through her veins. "I'll make a choice." But the weight of that choice pressed down on her like a heavy chain. What if her decision could turn against her, pulling her further into the abyss of Tony's world? The morning arrived with a frail beam of sunlight peeling through the curtains of Mary's small apartment. The faint aroma of coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the adrenaline that still coursed through her veins from the night before. She stood at the kitchen counter, her usual routine now warped into a landscape of uncertainty and possibility. Each swallow of the steaming liquid felt heavy with the weight of tomorrow's choices, clutching the notepad she had hastily filled with ideas, her thoughts spiraled around the gravity of her situation. She could remain entrenched in her stagnant life as a waitress, or she could leap into turbulent waters filled with both risk and promise. Today was her catalyst. She was determined to forge a new course, even if she wasn't entirely sure where it would lead. Once her sister had been her anchor, her guiding star. But as the years piled on, Mary had grown to realize that the strings tying them both to the past had become tangled. Their mother's struggles echoed in her mind, and past sacrifices surfaced like uncomfortable ghosts during quiet moments. It was time for Mary to step from behind the shadows, to carve her own legacy while still being her sister's protector. Slipping into a fitted black dress, she recognized the transformation from waitress to someone who could command attention. This was her subtle rebellion. She caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. There, staring back, was a woman who inspired respect not just from others, but increasingly from herself. Confidence began to swell within her as she prepared to meet Tony later that day. She couldn't hide behind the guise of a waitress any longer. The diner served as a backdrop, its familiar clatter of dishes and murmurs of chatter wrapping around her like a comforting spell. Yet, Mary felt distinctly apart from the scene unfolding around her. She sat at the booth where Tony had first approached her, heart racing with the specter of what the day could carry. As she tapped her fingers nervously against the leather seat, the thought of her ambition solidified clear and unwavering. At that moment, Tony entered, his magnetic presence causing a ripple through the diner. He strolled over, a playful smirk illuminating his face. "Ready for our little adventure?" he asked, eyes assessing her with curiosity. Mary nodded, pulling her resolve tighter like a cloak around her. "I've been thinking about my future, and I know it's time for me to take the reins," she replied, catching him slightly off guard. "Bold statement," he remarked with an undercurrent of intrigue. "So, what do you have in mind?" She took a breath, anchoring herself in the gravity of his gaze. "I want to explore. I want to learn what lies beyond these walls," she stated firmly. "I want to cook, not just serve." The words felt like a declaration to the universe, electrifying the air between them. She understood now that her resolve was more than a whim, it was a budding ambition that demanded recognition. Tony chuckled lightly, a hint of respect dancing in his eyes. "You think you're ready for the kitchen? It's not just about throwing ingredients together, Mary. It's a battlefield. I'm not afraid of battles. I'm just tired of watching others take the lead while my dreams simmer unnoticed. I want to be the one at the helm," she fired back, unflinching in her declaration. The corner of Tony's mouth twitched upward. "Then let us see what you've got. I can show you things that will change your perspective if you can handle them." As the door to this new chapter creaked open, Mary felt both exhilarated and terrified. Would she thrive under Tony's tutelage, or would she find herself ensnared in dangers far worse than she had predicted? "Are you ready to explore the kitchen?" he questioned, though the subtext hung in the air, waiting to be deciphered. "Yes. I'm ready," she affirmed, the instilled power of her own voice both unnerving and liberating. But with those words echoed another realization: she would have to face more than culinary challenges. The shadows from Tony's world brushed against hers, laden with consequences that lingered in the periphery. Who were the people she would encounter? What costs awaited her? Just then, her phone vibrated on the table, jolting her from her reverie. A message flashed across the screen, her heart clenching at the thought of what it might entail. Not just the kitchen, she whispered to herself, realigning her focus. She had to prepare for whatever lay ahead, for not all challenges would come dressed as opportunities. As she read the message, which hinted at a dilemma ignited by her bold decision, Mary felt the grip of uncertainty lingering in the air, an omen of the storm to come. Would she be able to navigate the swirling complexities while nurturing her dreams? The time had come to face the consequences of her aspirations, and in the swirling chaos between hope and risk, Mary stood firm. The scents of garlic and onions filled the air as Mary stood before the hissing stove, her heart hammering in rhythm with the sizzling sounds enveloping her. The kitchen, a world she had only observed in passing, now demanded her attention, the chaotic symphony of chefs shouting orders and running back and forth igniting an unfamiliar excitement within her. She clenched her hands around the edge of the counter, inhaling deeply, reminding herself that she had chosen this path, yet the uncertainty loomed like a dense fog. Tony emerged from the shadows, his presence commanding in a chef's coat that seemed to transform him into a figure of authority. "You ready to dive in?" His voice was both a challenge and an invitation, dripping with unfathomable layers of expectation. "I am," she replied, trying to project confidence despite her nerves twirling inside her like restless butterflies. "Good. First lesson: embrace chaos. It's South what keeps this place alive," he said, stepping aside to let her take the lead. Mary's mind raced. Could she really seize control of this environment that felt so foreign yet thrilling? The prospect of failing loomed large, and her thoughts danced between her past and the dreams she yearned to fulfill. She reached for the ingredients before her: fresh herbs, diced tomatoes, and meat sizzling in a cast-iron skillet. Each element sparked her memory, conjuring images of family meals, recipes memorized in her youth, and cherished moments shared around the dinner table. This was more than a skill, it was her history redefined. "Start with the garlic. Just like handling your challenges, get that sautéing right," Tony suggested, watching her closely. She nodded, remembering the warmth of the kitchen in her childhood, feeling a connection to it as she minced the garlic with precision. As the pungent aroma wafted through the air, a flicker of realization ignited within her: she was no longer just a spectator in her life. The weight of her earlier dreams, the desire for independence, the need to be more than what others expected, transformed into a quiet determination. But as her confidence began to solidify, another ghost emerged. The message from earlier nagged at her thoughts, raising an uncomfortable anxiety. Her sister's frantic text about a financial crisis she had stumbled upon had shattered the bubble of excitement she'd felt moments ago. Could she truly invest time in crafting her future while her sister could hardly support herself? With every simmer and sauté, Mary's conscience gripped her, challenging her resolve to pursue her ambition. "Focus, Mary. The dish won't cook itself," Tony reminded her, momentarily jolting her back into the kitchen's urgency. She fought to shake off her worries, but they clung to her like shadows. In that moment, Mary decided it was time to confront not only her own ambitions but also to understand the web of obligations pulling her in every direction. Balancing these realities would be a delicate act, but perhaps one worth mastering. "Let us add some seasoning." "Balance is key," Tony said, reaching for a jar of spices. "Just like life, you'll have to test how much you can take." In that metaphor, Mary discerned a deeper lesson. This was not merely about cooking, it was about flavoring her life with the salt of struggle and the sweetness of success. Could she blend them harmoniously without losing the essence of who she was? A doubt crept in, however. Her life had been a constant balancing act, yet now it felt like a tightrope walk without a safety net. Every decision was interwoven with repercussions, and as the heat from the stove enveloped her, so did the penumbras of her sister's struggles and her own aspirations. "Are you in this for yourself or to save someone else?" Tony's question sliced through her thoughts, catching her off guard. Mary held her breath, the tension thickening in the air as she deliberated. She was here to grow, to forge her own path in the culinary arts, but the pressure of familial loyalty pulled at her heartstrings. Navigating both worlds would be a test of her character. Yet was she willing to risk her burgeoning future to maintain the delicate equilibrium of familial duty? Her internal conflict gnawed at her determination, raising questions about the sacrifices she would have to confront. The kitchen grew quieter as she wrestled with her thoughts, the clamor of resolved futures and unyielding responsibilities swirling around her. I want to prove I can stand on my own," she finally said, her voice firm yet laced with uncertainty. "But I can't turn my back on my sister. How can I balance both?" Tony studied her, a flicker of recognition passing through his eyes. Sometimes, the path to personal growth involves difficult decisions. Sometimes it means acknowledging those you care for, but not letting it drown your own ambitions. His words resonated as a challenge, inviting her to dig deeper and consider a nuanced perspective. As Mary stirred the sauce, she realized she stood at a crossroads, plagued by self-doubt yet emboldened by clarity. The kitchen's energy around her started to feel less chaotic and more like a crucible. Could she truly navigate this balance, nurture her aspirations, and support her sister in the process? The reality of her ambition melted into her heart like cheese on a hot grill, and just as quickly as the thought settled, another message buzzed her phone, a reminder that her sister's need wouldn't simply fade away. The simmering pot reflected her internal dilemma, bubbling with unanswered questions. Could she find her way in this turbulent world without sacrificing everything she loved? The heat intensified, much like the decisions she faced ahead. Standing at that culinary frontier, Mary felt an unshakable resolve bubbling up alongside her fears. What could she endure? What risks would she embrace for the sake of her dreams? As the sounds of a bustling kitchen filled her ears, she understood that each dish she crafted would not only define her culinary identity but also the emotional landscape that lay before her. Yet there remained an unyielding tension circling her aspirations, echoing painfully in her thoughts as she glanced briefly at her phone, reason mixing dangerously with resolve. A choice loomed on the horizon, and the next step had yet to reveal itself. Not just the kitchen, she reminded herself quietly, taking a deep breath as the weight of reality settled in. The moment of truth approached, and with each turn of the spatula, Mary understood, the true challenge was just beginning. The fire crackled with intensity, the flames licking the sides of the skillet as Mary continued to stir, her mind racing faster than the bubbling sauce. Each second stretched out under the weight of uncertainty, amplifying her internal dialogue. Could she juggle her aspirations with the unmistakable demands of her sister's crisis? Don't let it simmer too long, Tony reminded her, his eyes sharp, fixing on her as if he could sense the tumult brewing beneath her composure. She had to focus, or she risked evaporating her chance to seize the day. Yet the noise of the kitchen faded as her thoughts drifted back to her sister. The text still buzzing in her pocket was a constant, nagging reminder of familial loyalty. Would her sister truly understand if Mary pursued her dreams while she grappled with her own failures? The strain of that thought zapped her resolve. Am I greedy for wanting more? She wondered, wiping a hand across her brow as the heat began to envelop her not just from the stove but from the pressure of her choices. As she poured in the fresh herbs, the vibrant green brought a hint of brightness amid her swirling shadows. Each sprinkle of parsley felt like a small rebellion against the looming darkness of guilt. If she could add flavor to this dish, why not her life? Initial hesitation replaced itself with a flicker of excitement as clarity swept over her. This was about crafting something beautiful, a metaphor for her own creation. Confidence in the kitchen translates to confidence in life, Tony had said earlier, and perhaps that was the key. If she could dictate the elements in her dish, maybe she could learn to dictate her own path. Could she carve out time for culinary mastery and, at the same time, remain available for her sister? If only she could find some shared connection between both parts of her life, some way to interweave her passion and obligation. Hey, Mary! Can you assist over here? A voice called, breaking her reverie. A fellow line cook needed help with plating, and without thinking, she rushed to their aid, adrenaline kicking in. With each plate she garnished, pride bubbled within her. It was exhilarating to be moving, contributing to the rhythm of the kitchen. Yet as the work unfolded, her mind lingered on unfinished scripts of duty and dreams. The kitchen buzz transformed into a space of self-discovery. As she observed seasoned chefs crafting their masterpieces, she realized they all faced choices as she did, moments that demanded prioritization of passions over obligations. It was part of the culinary dance, they must embrace their own ambitions, yet remain rooted in their relationships. Mary! Tony caught her attention, pulling her into the present. Are you with us? This is where you begin to use your own voice in the kitchen. Start thinking about your signature dish. What do you want it to say about you? A rush of determination surged, accompanied by a sense of impending revelation. Could her signature dish tell a story not just of her culinary ambitions but also of her depth, the layers of love she had for her sister, the struggles they both harbored, seamlessly woven into a creation that felt genuine? This wasn't some distant fantasy anymore, it was a practical blueprint, right there for the taking. Create what nourishes you. Remember that, Tony added, watching her closely, a knowing smile dancing across his lips. Mary felt the spark ignite. What if her first dish became a message of support for her sister, a representation of shared burdens transformed into something beautiful? Would it serve as a reminder that neither of them had to walk their paths alone? Resolved, she finalized the dish in her mind, a fusion of their favorite family flavors, each ingredient representing a memory, a shared moment of love, and ultimately resilience. It felt right, it was both homage and forward momentum, a delicate balancing act she felt ready to take on, yet just as she felt clarity, her phone buzzed again with another message, a desperate plea that pulled her thoughts back into turmoil. The timing was uncanny. The request urgent, and with a single instant, everything she had visualized threatened to crumble. Would she forfeit her budding dreams to address the call of duty once more? Or was this the moment she needed to prioritize herself without abandoning her sister? Uncertainty choked her resolve like the steam rising from the pots, each breath steeped in the weight of competing loyalties. Mary's heart raced as she glanced again at the glowing screen. Was it a cry for help or a sign for her to seize control of her narrative? The moment of truth loomed larger than ever, a definitive crossroad where she had to confront who she would be as a chef and as a sister. With her thoughts racing through possibilities, Mary stood on the brink of a choice that could redefine everything. Could she withstand the pressure and sculpt a future that encompassed her dreams without forsaking her family? As she prepared to respond, teetering on the edge of decision, a question surfaced from the depths of her mind. What price would she truly pay for pursuing her passions, and was she ready to face whatever consequences arose from her choice? Mary inhaled sharply as she felt a knot twist in her stomach. The urgency of the message threatened to drown out the rhythm of the kitchen, but she knew she couldn't let herself be swept away. Turning her phone face down on the counter, she forced herself to concentrate on the moment. Prioritizing her dreams would take courage, but she wasn't ready to let hopelessness take a hold of her. Taking a deep breath, she turned back to the simmering sauce, letting the familiar scent invigorate her. Each stir, each motion carried weight, and today's effort was more than just a function of routine, it was a statement of her existence. Her clarity emerged not as a murmur but as a triumphant proclamation. She wanted to be both Mary the chef and Mary the sister. Tony's guidance resonated in her mind, breaking through her internal chaos. Create what nourishes you. What if the dish she envisioned served as a bridge rather than a barrier? She began to clarify the components: roasted garlic for strength, heirloom tomatoes for warmth, and fresh basil for hope. Each selected ingredient resonated with her personal narrative, building a dish that told a story of resilience through flavors. As she chopped and stirred, Mary was haunted by the question that lingered over her decision. Should she respond to her sister's plea or focus on her burgeoning ambition? The weight of loyalty hovered over her like a specter. The fear that her sister might not understand how vital pursuing her passion was twisted in her gut, inching itself closer to despair. But what if she could show her sister? What if the first plate she crafted didn't just express her culinary identity but also served as an olive branch? That possibility lit a fire within her, an awakening born from the conviction that she could both honor her commitment to her family and embrace her own dreams. Moving with renewed urgency, she prepared to execute her dish more intentionally. She envisioned the look on her sister's face, a fusion of surprise and perhaps pride when she tasted not just the meal, but the love and story woven in every bite. Almost done. Mary called out, needing to infuse her excitement into every step. She deftly assembled her creation on the plate, adding a drizzle of balsamic reduction as a finishing touch. This dish would not live just to satisfy taste buds, it would ignite conversation, it would establish a narrative of support, and perhaps most importantly, it would establish her identity as a chef. With every turn of her wrist and the careful placement of sprigs, she fought against doubt. She could barely believe the dish was coming together as her heart raced. This was more than a culinary endeavor, it was her first real declaration of identity, but just as she finished garnishing, her phone buzzed once more, slicing through her accomplishment like a knife. Stalling, she steadied her breath. Determining her next action felt monumental. Could she silence the siren call of obligation with a commitment to herself? Mary, another order. Tony's voice broke through her reverie once more, demanding her attention. There was no time for hesitation. She could feel that this was a pivotal moment. With the dish finally complete, she stood poised at the intersection of creativity and duty. Would she leave it behind to embrace the tumult of familial responsibility? A profound truth sank deeper into her being. She could outline her path and simultaneously extend a lifeline to her sister. As the tension built within her, Mary realized the answer to her dilemma lay not in choosing one over the other, but in weaving both aspirations together. Acknowledging her sister's needs didn't diminish her own. The moment of revelation surged through her, but could she create this balance in a way that fulfilled them both? And what would that mean for her future? Back at the stove, she hovered over the plate. The last act waited to be performed. Would stepping into her power now catalyze others to rise above their own? The temptation to act was strong, yet she found herself questioning if the time was truly right. With a determined resolve brewing alongside her excitement, Mary prepared to showcase her new dish, uncertain of how her sister and the kitchen would respond. As she moved toward the table to present it, the question lingered in her heart. Was this her moment of triumph, or would she discover a deeper challenge awaiting her? It was a leap into the unknown, but wasn't that the essence of pursuing one's dreams? As she stepped forward, the tension of the choice wrapped around her like a cloak, shrouding her in an intoxicating mixture of dread and hope. As Mary carefully placed the dish on the table, a blend of excitement and fear surged through her. The robust aromas wafted up, clinging to the air like memories of childhood meals, brightened by the sunny nostalgia they called forth. Her heart fluttered as she turned to face her sister, who sat across the table, oblivious to the storm brewing inside Mary. But this was not just a meal, it was a turning point. The plate gleamed with charm, an encapsulation of her culinary journey, and yet, it beckoned for acceptance. Would her sister recognize the depths of love and ambition invested within each ingredient? "Wow, it looks amazing, Mary," her sister replied, leaning in closer, drawn by the enticing fragrance. Mary's heart danced. This was an invitation she had longed for, the mere appreciation of her work, her art. "Thanks. I wanted to create something that symbolizes what we mean to each other," Mary ventured, her voice steadying as her nerves receded, buoyed by the interest reflected in her sister's eyes. "It's roasted garlic, heirloom tomatoes, and fresh basil with a balsamic reduction. It embodies strength, warmth, and hope." In that moment, she dared to share her vision, to translate her internal dialogue into something tangible. As her sister took the first bite, Mary held her breath, watching intently. The initial pause sent ripples of anxiety through her. Could it be that her sister wouldn't understand? Or worse, not enjoy it? She had built everything on this moment, the affirmation of her identity as both a chef and a sister. Then, her sister's eyes widened in delight, and a broad smile broke across her face. "This is incredible, Mary. It's like a hug in food form." The warmth of her approval enveloped Mary, igniting a sense of validation she had desperately sought, yet, as the praise covered her like a warm blanket, the complexity of her emotions twisted within her. Here was her sister, consuming not just a meal, but the very essence of their relationship. Mary instinctively felt the weight of the past, the obligations, the expectations, the unspoken fears tethering her to a choice. "Mary," her sister began cautiously, the joy on her face slowly morphing into something more serious, "this is amazing, but are you really okay? I mean, I know things haven't been easy." The concern that seeped into her voice was a bittersweet mix of compassion and confusion. Mary felt her heart beat faster. This was the engine of her conflict, her sister's need for reassurance, her longing to pursue her passion, and the widening chasm that seemed to linger between them. Opportunity met responsibility, and as she nodded, words caught in her throat. She didn't want to lie but feared to share the full weight of her aspirations. "I am, but it's about more than just being okay," she finally managed to say, her eyes sparkling with determination. "I've decided it's time for me to focus on my cooking. I really want to do something significant with it." The vulnerability sent tremors through her. Would this revelation send her sister spiraling once more? As an unexpected silence hung in the air, a lump formed in Mary's throat. What if sharing her ambitions only widened the rift between their hopes? Her sister's reaction would turn the moment she had fought for into uncertainty, yet it felt crucial that she be completely authentic. "I understand, Mary." "I do," her sister replied slowly, uncertainty mixing with admiration. "But I don't want you to feel you have to choose between us." "No," Mary said, a wave of clarity washing over her. "I'm not choosing. It can be both. I want to bring you along with me." As the words settled into the air, Mary felt the tightness in her chest begin to loosen. Maybe this was just the first step in a long journey, a path forged through honesty and shared dreams. Across the table, her sister smiled, a softening of the lines of worry on her face. "Then let us face this together. I'll support you." In that moment, the foundation between them began to shift, bricks laid with care, each glimmering with potential. While a blossoming future seemed possible, rays of uncertainty still flickered. Could this newfound balance hold? As they began to share their dreams, Mary felt propelled to explore how far her culinary journey might stretch. But alongside this exhilaration loomed the question of whether they could truly navigate the challenges ahead without losing themselves in the process, and just as their conversation deepened, the club's door swung open, unleashing a cacophony from the bustling kitchen behind it. Tony's voice broke through their moment, demanding busy hands. Mary turned towards the sound, heart racing. Had her next challenge been summoned already? Determined to forge ahead, Mary felt the weight of her dreams, as walls grew higher in her mind and new barriers awaited her. With her sister's support, what new boundaries would she dare to cross next? Mary's thoughts cascaded as she heard Tony call for help in the kitchen. The warmth from the dinner still radiated within her, but the urgency of the kitchen offered a contrasting chill, a shift back to reality. Each step toward the kitchen felt like a plunge into uncharted waters, the atmosphere thick with the heady mix of spices and the clanking of pots. "I'll be back," she said softly to her sister before merging into the sea of cooks and chaos. This was the crucible where her aspirations and fears collided, a space filled with relentless movements and expectations. Inside, her excitement fought against the impulse to retreat. Each heartbeat pulsed with the weight of her decisions. Tony stood with a flourish, gesturing toward various stations. "Mary, we're about to do a high-volume service. I need you to put together a few appetizers." The energy in his voice thrummed. It was the kind of challenge that sparked both anxiety and adrenaline within her. "You've got it," she replied, hoping her confidence masked her turmoil. She dove into the work, finally chopping herbs and organizing ingredients, but beneath the rhythm, her thoughts meandered through the evening's earlier revelations. Could she truly integrate her passion for culinary art with a fulfilling career? The question lingered like the aroma of roasted garlic, strong yet elusive. As she worked, Mary became increasingly aware of the well-practiced grace of her hands, the way they moved with instinctual fluidity. In between the chaos of orders and the sharp sounds of the kitchen, a revelation shimmered. She was adapting, learning to navigate hurdles she hadn't foreseen. This moment wasn't just a test of skill, it was a manifestation of her commitment. Tony approached, sensing her deep focus. "You're really resonating with the rhythm, Mary." His approval felt like a kindred connection amidst the strain. Yet, as he watched her grow, a hint of concern flickered across his face. "But don't forget your boundaries. Know when to ask for backup, you're still one part of a larger team." The advice echoed in her ears, a reminder that while pursuing her dreams, she shouldn't lose herself in the ambitions of others. She took in his words, realizing that her journey was not just about individual achievement but shared success. How could she craft a future that harmonized her culinary aspirations with the relationships she cherished? It was a complicated balance that was just beginning to unfurl. As the night progressed, the volume of orders surged, yet Mary remained anchored. The initial doubts that had shadowed her resolutions began to dissolve. She could transform her passion into a career, one step at a time. She coordinated with fellow cooks, sharing ideas. Together, they turned chaos into near symphony, laughter mixing with the sizzling sounds of pans. The night wore on, and after the final, frenetic rush of diners, relief washed through her. Exhausted but exhilarated, Mary absorbed the camaraderie of the moment, feeling buoyed by both challenge and support, a duality she had once feared. In the quieter aftermath, she stood back from an empty station, the adrenaline beginning to fade. With her sister's steady encouragement and the team's collaborative energy, she felt more empowered than ever. Yet shadows of doubt persisted. Could she maintain this momentum amid uncertainty? Would she have to sacrifice the connections she held dear for her ambitions? Lost in thought, Mary hardly noticed Tony sidling up beside her, an unsmiling sincerity in his words. "If you want to take it further, you'll need a plan. Have you thought about what you want next?" His directness startled her out of her reverie, urging her to confront the future she envisioned desperately. Just then, a memory flared, a splash of heated resolve and vulnerability. What if clarity didn't mean the absence of fear but the acceptance of its presence? The weight of possibility pressed down, demanding she confront her fears rather than run from them. Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from another part of the kitchen. The disarray jostled her, and instinctively, her gaze snapped to the source. A moment of panic surged as she saw a pan topple over and a plate smash to the floor. With adrenaline spiking again, she realized the chaos had returned. Yet somehow, amid the fragments of glass and disarray lay an opportunity, a reminder of her commitment not only to her growth but to the team. It was clear, she wasn't just forging her path alone. What now? She wondered, heart racing. Could she truly find the balance between her ambitions and this newfound reality? With new determination coursing through her veins, she was ready to step into the next chapter of her culinary journey. But as she turned toward Tony, a sliver of concern clouded her focus. What awaited her beyond this bustling kitchen? As the kitchen buzzed back to its familiar rhythm, Mary steadied her breath, regaining focus amidst the aftermath of chaos. The energy had shifted, she felt a palpable sense of determination igniting within her. It was more than a night of bustle and excitement, it was a defining moment. Each action she'd taken felt purposeful, yet uncertainty gnawed at her, steering her thoughts to the path ahead. Tony's gaze lingered on her as he paused. "So, what's next for you, Mary? Have you thought about it while you've been here?" His question sliced through the ambience, drawing her back into an introspective whirlpool. Mary hesitated, as if her mind were weighed down. "I've started to think about it, about how I can grow in this space," she admitted, but the words tasted bland. Was that all she had to offer? She paused to collect her thoughts, realizing her heart raced not just at being in the spotlight but from the potential impact of her answers. "Think bigger," he urged, his tone serious yet supportive. "This is just the beginning. If you want a career in this industry, you need to identify what really sets your soul on fire." His challenge resonated, unraveling the tightly wound strands of her aspirations. Suddenly, she realized what she needed to confront, her fear of stepping outside her comfort zone. She had grown comfortable amid the chaos, but was she truly ready to leap into a future where her dreams took precedence? Could she transform from participant to leader? Before she could articulate her thoughts, she snapped into action, organizing her cluttered station. Each knife chop, each pantry item neatly sorted, became a meditative rhythm, allowing her to approach her ambitions with intention. Frantically, she began listing potential goals in her mind, scribbling them into an invisible notebook. Become a sous chef. Master advanced techniques. Design her own menu. Her body surged with energy as these thoughts crystallized, and she looked up, meeting Tony's expectant gaze. "You're right," she said, her voice stronger now. "I want to develop my skills, maybe even lead a team someday. I've never really thought about how to make that happen until now." Tony nodded, his respect evident. "That's the spirit, Mary. The culinary world is notoriously tough, but those who carve their own path tend to thrive. You need a roadmap." The challenge ignited something deep within her, prompting her to visualize her ambitions like a puzzle waiting to be assembled. Each piece represented necessary skills, valuable connections, and experiences that could fortify her journey. It wouldn't be easy, but she saw the outline taking shape before her. "How can I make that happen?" she asked, her determination igniting a spark of intrigue in her voice. Start by refining your technical skills. Explore culinary courses, challenge yourself with new cuisines. Then, maybe consider stepping into leadership roles within our team. That's how you'll know what you're truly capable of. He offered this advice almost like a treasure map leading to uncharted territory. The nights of hard work in the kitchen illuminated a path of growth that once felt ambiguous. Slowly, Mary understood that balancing her aspirations and her relationships didn't mean limiting herself. Rather, it meant cultivating an environment for collaboration and personal growth, allowing her to thrive alongside her team. Yet as she contemplated her future, doubts wormed their way back in, darkening the edges of her clarity. How could she ensure her ambitions didn't upend her treasured connections? It was a question that weighed heavily, threatening to reshape her burgeoning resolve. Just as she wrestled with her thoughts, the kitchen erupted into another wave of orders. The urgency sharpened her focus, but behind it, a shadow lingered, whispering of choices to come. Would she be bold enough to pursue her aspirations without losing sight of her roots? With anticipation swirling within her, Mary felt the electricity of decisions ahead. There was urgency in each slicing motion, exhilaration in every dish she plated. She was beginning to carve her niche, yet uncertainty intermingled with her resolve. That's where the real challenge lies, she mouthed quietly to herself. How far was she willing to push? Would she find the answers she needed to balance the weight of ambition with warmth of connection? In the flicker of passion and doubt, the kitchen door swung open, casting a light on unexpected visitors' faces she recognized, yet hadn't anticipated. A new twist shrouded Mary's evolving journey, one that held the potential to either bolster her aspirations or complicate them in unforeseen ways. With her heart racing, she turned toward the doorway. What now? She wondered, bracing for a reality she hadn't quite prepared for. Mary stood transformed. The diner, once a cramped world of greasy plates and self-doubt, now felt like the backdrop of a vibrant new chapter. She could finally see the restaurant of her dreams, not just as a fleeting fantasy but as a tangible goal, beckoning her with open doors. The chaos of her past began to settle into a harmonious rhythm, an orchestra of her aspirations and responsibilities playing in concert. The weight of her sister's needs mixed seamlessly with the stirrings of her culinary ambition, creating a new symphony of purpose. Her foray into the culinary world had stripped her of fear and insecurity. Each dish she prepared wasn't simply food, it was a canvas on which she painted her resolve, her identity as a chef, and her love for her sister. The fusion of their favorite family flavors in her signature dish was not just a meal, but a declaration of the future she wanted to build, one where personal ambition danced in step with familial love. As she spent her days in the kitchen, the rhythms of culinary life seeped into her bones. She honed her skills under Tony's stern and watchful eye, each challenge met with a burgeoning confidence. She tackled new recipes and techniques, revealing layers of creativity she had long kept hidden. With every sauce she perfected and every dish she plated, Mary conquered her doubts, proving to herself that her dreams were not only attainable but deserved. Finally, the night arrived for Mary to showcase her signature dish at a coveted event. Tony had orchestrated a taste testing for influential critics in the culinary world. The stakes were monumental, yet she felt an unshakable calm settle over her. This was her moment to shine. In the kitchen's bustle, the air crackled with anticipation as she meticulously plated her creation. Each vibrant color told a story. As she set the dish before the assembled food critics, a sense of satisfaction pulsed through her. This was a testament to her hard work, her relentless pursuit of a future where she could not only support her sister but also thrive as an individual. When the critics took their first bites, Mary held her breath, watching as their expressions transformed from curiosity to delight. Their enthusiasm rippled through the room, igniting a thunderous approval. In that moment, recognition washed over her like warm sunshine. They didn't just enjoy her creation, they appreciated the heart she had poured into it. As she received compliments, accolades, and validation, the realization hit her like a thunderclap: she wasn't just a waitress in a diner anymore. She was an emerging chef with a distinct voice, carving her identity into the culinary landscape. Her sister's supportive smile flashed through her mind, fueling her triumph. In the aftermath of the event, the applause she received echoed louder than any doubts she had ever harbored. "You did it!" Tony exclaimed, pride evident in his gaze. "This is just the beginning, Mary. You're poised to soar." With newfound confidence, Mary felt centered in her identity. She had transformed from someone who felt trapped in a world of obligation to a woman ready to embrace her dreams. As she considered her next steps, she envisioned further culinary explorations, leadership roles, and perhaps even her own restaurant, a space where the warmth of family and the elegance of her culinary art would coexist. Mary realized that acceptance of her dreams didn't diminish her familial responsibilities. Instead, it illuminated a path forward where both could thrive. The lessons she had learned in that kitchen, the importance of community, the necessity of balancing ambition with care, were the foundations on which she would build her future. As she stepped into her newly established identity, the lights of the diner faded behind her, but she carried the spirit of her past with her, a guide and a reminder of where she had come from. Now, as Mary strode confidently into the kitchen, she made a silent commitment. She would not only rise as a chef but also support her sister with the same tenacity she used to craft her dishes. This was her destiny, to create, to nurture, and to thrive. The future was bright, the challenges were many, but Mary had proven to herself that she could achieve greatness. And as she prepared for the next service, each sizzle and sauté became a continuation of her journey, a journey she was finally ready to own. Now is the time to act. You need to subscribe now to never miss out on the next exclusive stories of personal triumphs like Mary's. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, show your support and keep the stories coming. Comment your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Mary's incredible journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Take action, transform lives today.